I'm John,
I'm Rob,
and this is the Min One podcast,
where we talk all things Web3 and the rise of blockchain gaming.
So Rob, we harbour some unpopular opinions about Web3.
We do. Let's piss some people off.
Okay, before we get started, if you're on YouTube, like, comment and subscribe. Apple and Spotify 5-star podcast review. And let us know who you'd like us to interview next. And if you're looking to sponsor a podcast, reach out to us on Discord.
Yes.
Well, let's dive into it. So, unpopular opinions. It's been over 50 episodes since we last
That's
discussed.
ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah,
Crazy.
since we last discussed our unpopular opinions on the Web3 space. So with so much time having passed and so much having changed in that amount of time, I think it's high time we touched on the topic once again.
Yeah.
I don't recall exactly what the market feel was like back then, whether we'd just gone past the high and we were starting to fall, but
It was early 2022, so I imagine we were in what was
Everything's
about to be
amazing.
an extremely long decline. Yeah.
But I think we'll probably come into this one with a great deal more skepticism and obviously knowledge of what's happened since then, which hasn't been all plain sailing, let's say. So I've got a couple of things that immediately spring to mind for me.
Okay.
I'm just going to go into my first one. Fuck it. Let's
Kick
go.
us off.
So this touches on something we discussed a little bit in the previous few episodes is, quite frankly, 95% of Web3 games are terrible.
Yeah, I think that number, 95% is probably fair.
And I don't know if I think that's an unpopular opinion within Web3, but I think if you come at it
outside
as
it's not.
Yeah, if you come at it as a gamer, then I still think, although there has been progress made, don't get me wrong, the majority of games are still just glorified clickers to earn a token or earn NFTs, and the whole point of it is make money, which I feel at this point in 2023 is absolutely ridiculous. Like, nobody's making anything off games right now, and
not really.
I would hope that by now it would have switched to, you can freely trade your items, and there's these have more use to you than just I'm going to buy a $5 pack and get things that actually have no value to me. It's basically like throwing money down the drain. But we haven't got beyond that. We've got we're still in the buy this $5 pack and it could have things worth $10 in it.
Yes. I agree with the overall sentiment. I think we said something similar to this 2 years ago, and I think I offered a sentiment that was similar to what Robbie Young said the other day. So Robbie Young of Animoca Brands said when the question was put to him, why are there no great games in Web3? He said great games take time to make, which is a point we've made a lot. You don't think that's fair? I think that's fair.
Okay, if he said that in 2020, I might be more, and I'm sure he probably did say in 2020, but I would be a bit more lenient.
But there weren't.
I think
the thing is, we didn't have the tools, did we? We didn't have the SDKs and stuff in place to start the work.
No, that is true.
So games like Metalcore, I think, are showing that perhaps now we can expect more, or we should be getting more games like that.
For sure.
I agree with it. I do still think we're in the early part of the development cycle, just because, not because blockchain in games is now considered new as a concept. It's at least 6 years old, I'd say. But this is great to say, by the way. I don't think the onboarding of developers is as much of a problem anymore as it was. Now, in 2020, onboarding developers in terms of integrating blockchain technology and wallets into a game was hard, and probably the juice wasn't worth the squeeze in the long-term vision. It actually was worth the squeeze financially if you'd got it right in 2020, but it probably wasn't on the overall. I don't think it was probably worth it, and it was too difficult and too expensive to make a bespoke solution yourself. I have a related unpopular opinion to this, and it's a unique unpopular opinion in that I wouldn't have liked it to a year ago.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have to caveat a lot of this because you definitely are not going to like this. And I don't, I'm still a little, I could be talked out of this one.
Sure.
I have come to accept that GameFi might just be a genre of game in its own right now. Now, I don't like play to earn for play to earn's sake.
Yep.
You know that, we agree on that.
Yep.
I hated the term GameFi, and I still kind of do hate the term GameFi. But I think the people playing these clicker play to earn games I genuinely think they are doing the same thing as people that are investing money in altcoins. They're playing the speculation game. They think that by playing it now, if we see another gaming bull run, they'll make a fortune, which, I mean, that is true. I don't think we will, but if we were, yeah, exactly. If we were to see a gaming bull run, they would be correct probably. So I think they're playing it speculatively. However, I think there probably is a genre of game where hyper accessible, like the most accessible games you can get, and the objective essentially is to earn a token in that game, which you can sell in real life if you wanted to. I think that's probably. I think I could be convinced that that's a genre of game now.
Okay. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, the first real example that pops into my mind is Gods Unchained. The fact that, if you play their, is it called ranked or whatever, the play X amount of games, you get kind of payout on X amount of wins. Like that, you get rewarded Gods token for that, right? Or there's some system whereby you play Gods Unchained and you get Gods token as an output of that, which I don't think there's much wrong with that system. It's probably one of the best ways of doing it. The Gods token isn't worth very much, but I don't think there's many people cashing out large amounts of Gods token for other things. I think people are mostly using it just to buy other cards or other packs, or it's a relatively closed ecosystem. I don't think there's much money flowing in or out of that, even though there's a possibility of it. And I think if that was the case for most Web3 games, that would be okay. But I think for a lot of Web3 games that have tokens, it's just viewed as, I'm going to get $1,000 worth of this token and then send it to my Coinbase and cash out to my bank. And
you've been too kind to my unpopular opinion. Because, so I agree, I like Gods Unchained's model, but a reward mechanism that gives tokens, I wouldn't call that GameFi.
Okay.
I'm genuinely talking about, so when I say
click
clickers,
a button and
when
token.
I say, right. So I need to clarify this.
Okay.
What I don't mean is that, you remember the early blockchain brawlers thing, where once an hour you click something. That's not what I mean.
Okay.
Right? That is nothing. And I'm not. This isn't a shot at blockchain brawlers. They didn't think it was a game either. But
well, it isn't. So
it was just, you clicked a button once an hour. That's not what I'm talking about. That's nothing. There's no category for what that was.
No.
However, things like, I'm trying not to name the game that I'm working with because that is obviously unfair. But games that are complicated, but they're just browser-based clickers. You don't need any sort of hardware.
Yeah, okay.
But the objective is quite clearly to earn a lot of the token. Whether you trade it out or not is kind of immaterial. It's trying to earn a token, and it's essentially something that's been around for a very long time. Like I've mentioned the game Gazillionaire, which was essentially the same thing, but before it was tokenized. You're just trying to make a token in a game, except now the token is can be an actual currency. Yeah. And that sort of strategic GameFi thing, I could accept as a genre of game now. I think I've come around to the idea that probably is up some people's street, not up mine. I don't like it. I wouldn't play it, but there's plenty of games that I wouldn't play that people absolutely love.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, so yeah, that would have pissed me off 18 months ago, a year ago. But that's an unpopular opinion. I'm
Well,
going.
we touched on
posit.
this with Decentraland, right? Which is effectively the same thing. The only reason you play Decentraland is you think you're going to earn some tokens, it's going to be worth something, and then you also get this kind of semblance of control, or I'm managing my own, digital environment, which is obviously complete BS, and we've done a whole podcast episode on that. But yeah, there's certainly kind of, many games like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of like an evolution or a deviation from social games, where people were on Facebook managing farm plots.
Oh, what was that nightclub game on Facebook in like 2010? I used to play the hell out of that.
Nightclub? I don't even know.
Yeah, it was like you could like create a fake nightclub, and all your Facebook friends would like come, your Facebook friends would come in and dance, like that kind of thing. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
It's kind of just like a social game. It's easy mobile and social games onboard. We've talked about this before. They onboarded the unonboardable, the older people that weren't interested in gaming whatsoever.
Candy Crush generation.
Candy Crush. The more I've read about Candy Crush a lot lately, and the amount of money they were making from people. Yeah, I didn't know this. He was on a podcast recently, the CEO, and he was talking about they were making so much money that when people spent a lot of money in their store, they would reach out to them to make sure they could afford it and that it was okay, because they basically found a cheat code, and I think they had some sort of moral worry that they were just robbing people with this addictive gameplay.
In fairness, they do, well, not even in fairness, like they deliberately design these games to catch whales.
Yes.
But it's very easy. It's very easy for them to come out on like anything and be like, "Oh, we don't want people to spend 20 grand on our game. Oh no, please don't do that."
No, I think his point was they were making more money than they could ever spend, so they were looking for vulnerable people to make sure that, because there's whales in every game. Like look at that Diablo Immortal, the dude dropping like literal millions in it.
Yeah.
You don't worry about those, because if he's an oil baron, £1 million, he probably didn't even notice it coming out of his account.
True.
But if your nan has just spent 20 grand of a pension because she wanted a few more crystals, it is so I think GameFi games will fall under that kind of bracket. Anyway, what's your next unpopular?
Well, it's kind of a very quick and short add-on to what we've already discussed, but I think there's a number of Web3 games out there that are actively worse for having Web3 in them.
Okay, unpack
As in, they would have a wider appeal, more people would play, more people would care, more people would enjoy them if they didn't have Web. I don't think you can unequivocally state that Web3 is a net positive in any game it could be a part of. I think there's many games where if you remove tokens, remove the ability to have NFTs, earn NFTs, that the game is just objectively better and would have more people in it. For example, it might be controversial to say this, but I guess that's what we're doing this episode, I suppose.
Exactly.
So the games like Skyweaver and Gods Unchained, both of them are very good TCGs. I think both of them would have much bigger player bases if they didn't have Web3 in them.
Okay. Can I interject here?
Sure.
I think you're making 2 points, not one.
Okay.
So there's the question of, one, is it improving the game? And two, is it capturing the biggest audience they can capture? I think you can disagree. It's unpopular opinions. We're meant to disagree here. I think Skyweaver and TCG and Gods Unchained are better as TCGs. I think they're better games for having blockchain in them. But you are 100% correct. They are not getting the maximum audience they could get. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And I think it annoys me in a way, because I do think games such as Gods Unchained and Skyweaver and Metalcore to an extent, or they've just had a play test, they're not released yet, but I think they have the potential to have much bigger audiences than they do, and it's possible they could be more successful as games, and the developers would be in a better position if they weren't Web3 based. But if they believe in the technology and they think that they want to be a part of this, the forefront of great Web3 games that are coming out, then that's great. But kind of a side point to that is there's also a lot of quote unquote games out there that are just GameFi or DeFi just with a game skin over the top of them, and those to me just, I don't want to say shouldn't exist, but if you're in a browser and you're like, oh, I need to stick this NFT in this slot, and then I can click a button and I get a token or a resource, then I come back an hour later, like, that isn't a game. Anyone who calls that a game is a moron. Like, it's just not a game. You're clicking a button. You're the Homer Simpson little thingy on the keyboard, just tapping over and over and over again. Like, the
game needs some complexity, or it needs to be a game.
It almost, and this is going to be quite unpopular. It always annoys me, the people that play those games legitimately, that get annoyed when people write bots for them. Of course, people write bots for them. They're boring as hell.
Well, I mean, it's not hard to write a bot.
It's not hard, and it's. I'm not saying I've ever used a bot to play these kind of games, because I haven't, but I feel it's... You're basically accusing people of making this incredibly tedious task easier for them to do, and then not recognizing that the fault... I can't blame the people writing the bots. You have to blame the people writing the game for making something so incredibly simple and dull that all that requires is clicking a button once an hour.
I mean, that's not a game. If there's nothing, there has to be a lot going on around that. It's just not a game. It's not a game. Like the blockchain brawlers thing. It was a marketing thing, essentially. What they did. It wasn't a game. There was no game, but there was no game. There were no decisions. There were no consequences.
I guess they would probably claim at the time, it depended what brawler you use, and if they had an accessory, and if they had this, but.
Nobody had enough brawlers that it was a decision. You had the brawlers you had.
Trying to pass that off as some kind of strategic choice is a bit much. I mean, they have a game now. Not a lot of people play it, but they have a game now.
Now it's unambiguously a game. The conversation of whether you like it or I like it, or it's good or it's not good, isn't
subjective.
Really, isn't really relevant. It's now a game. It wasn't a game. Had a point.
I feel like this is going to happen quite a bit in this episode, where we just start rambling.
What was your overarching criticism there?
Web3. There's a lot of Web3 games that would be better without Web3 in them,
right?
And then conversely, there are things that are just GameFi or DeFi with a skin.
That's what I was going to say.
Pointless.
You mentioned Metalcore. You said that the developers would be better off if it didn't have blockchain or NFTs, because they would get a better. So,
well, not even that. Sorry to butt in, but if they came out and were like, "Hey, we're making a spiritual successor to PlanetSide. We're doing it with next gen, Unreal Engine 5. It's going to be. It's going to be. I don't know if you played BattleBit at the moment.
I have. Yeah,
basically, what they're doing is just BattleBit, but with way better graphics. Like, people are going to love that.
So, my only counterpoint to that, I agree. They could cast a wider net, and they could probably get more players without blockchain
and more money.
I'll make 2 points.
Sure.
1 point is kind of here or there, and that is they don't need to market it as a Web3 game.
No,
they could do what Skyweaver has done, and it just have blockchain in the background, which is what we want. My other point is that I don't think Metalcore would have possibly happened without blockchain, because they wouldn't have got the funding.
No, I tend to agree with you there. But I mean, a game like Metalcore will live or die by the amount of people it can get to first play the game, and then second, stay around.
Well,
my worst fear for Metalcore is it has a public release, and for the first 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, it's full of people and it's great, and then people start to drop it off. And
that's just game life, though, isn't it? Game dev life.
But as soon as people start dropping off in a game like Metalcore, and there's less people around, that just instigates other people leaving, because it directly makes it less fun.
Well, it's an MMO of sorts, and unless there's a massive amount of multiplayers in there, it's just an O.
So I hope it goes well for them, though. I
do. I'm playing the playtest this weekend. It ticks every box for me. I want it to be great. I'm testing. So watch out on Twitter. I'm going to try and do some clips of it when I play it this weekend. It's a great game. Okay. I tell you what we should do quickly is I said to John before this, I find it weird when I say John, it's like I'm talking to a third person in this room that doesn't exist, but I guess I'm talking to the audience.
Yes.
So when we did our Unpopular Opinions episode 1, which was about 18 months ago, so for every episode I do, I write notes before I come on just to remember stuff. I did for that episode, and like the digital hoarder I am, I still have the notes and I found them, haven't read them. Shall I quickly just rattle off what's in this list?
Sure.
And see if we still think it's unpopular or where it is. So this is like a little time capsule for us, 18 months ago when we were happier and wealthier. Right. So, unpopular opinion. Blockchain technology is more important than cryptocurrencies. Most people don't care about the technology, just about the generation of wealth.
Yes, 100%.
100%. Yeah, right. That's not remotely unpopular to me. Generative art collections aren't good. Perhaps one or two were interesting at first, but now they're just lazy. I'm fully behind that.
It's
again.
Interesting because we made that comment before the explosion of AI kind of changed a lot of things, and at least
imagine. Sorry to interrupt, but imagine Midjourney had seen its rise around the NFT boom.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
It'd have been chaos.
We would have been absolutely sick of it by now.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Generative AI is becoming a problem in the NFT space, and at least within the wax community, there has been a marketplace which is which is going to hide AI generated art because, and again, this is down to personal philosophy and beliefs. Like, to me, if I would like to know if I'm buying something that's been AI generated or hand made, but I would like the ability to either filter or sort and not have all AI, removed entirely. But again,
it's quite hard to tell.
It is very hard to tell. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the situation's like on other blockchains because, I mean, at least with generative PFPs and stuff in the past, I mean, it wasn't like ChatGPT AI generated, but, there was obviously an algorithm behind creating those. But there's kind of been an explosion of generative PFPs again, and I'm kind of sick of it. Like,
I didn't like it
without trying to be rude.
Definitely not on board.
Without trying to be rude, if you're one of these people that is like bought all of the 5, 6, 7 generative AI projects that have popped up lately, what in the hell are you doing? Like, it's if you want to
banking on history repeating itself.
If you want to support the creator, fine. I've bought NFTs in the past purely to support the creator, not because I have like an expectation of reward or like benefit at the end of it, just because hey, I like what this person's doing and I like for them to continue doing that if that's what they want to do. But yeah, I can't justify buying into every single mint hoping that one of them's going to make you a millionaire, because
I think almost none of them will.
But there's still people around there that are doing it. Oh, look, why? What? Please stop.
They're speculative.
They are indeed.
They
are indeed.
Next one is NFT art will return to just being art in the way we approached art before NFTs. NFT will just be a utility dimension to them.
I think NFT art is kind of weird. There's still artists out there like Claire Silver and Fuck Render and Ferocious, etc. They're still around and still doing things, but their work and what they do is nowhere near as high in price or as widespread or as popular as it was 2 years ago. I
guess what this point is that NFT should just be the vehicle, not a selling point.
Which I think we're seeing less NFT artists now than we were. I think the ships kind of sail for a lot, but there are still people that made their name 2 years ago that are hanging around, and
which I like. If you're a talented artist, use the vehicle. Like I don't want people to stop. I just you know what I'm saying. I don't know what this is going to say. This is my point from 18 months ago, and it says unpopular shower thought. Some very dodgy people probably got rich off of Bitcoin because of Silk Road.
That's yes.
It's not. It's kind of an unpopular observation, I guess.
The Bitfinex hack people have finally been charged, right? That news came out this past week.
I think so, yeah.
So, I mean, it's not just through Silk Road, but through pretty much anything connected to Bitcoin up until today.
Scams.
There's been plenty of shady people making a lot of money. And it's still happening now. But that's going to tie into a point I make later, so I'll leave that.
Okay. There's not that many left of these because I go on an absolute rampage around one of them, which I ended up writing an article for you about. The next one is very few chains, let alone blockchain games or NFT projects, will still be alive in 10 years. Still agree with that.
They're not even alive in 2 years.
You were. Yes, that's true. So I will take that as evidence.
Yeah.
The next one, which I went on, there's nearly an A4 page of my notes on this. Crypto is full of cult language and behavior. We have discussed that in depth. I've written an article about it.
We discussed it last episode of WorldCoin.
Yes. My notes on this, I remember all of this. I read a book. For that episode, I read an entire book on cult language by Amanda Montell, just to see how well it fit, and it fit unbelievably like a glove. Yeah. And then toxic positivity, which still kind of exists. It's just not very powerful.
It's almost turned into toxic negativity. Or toxic realism. I think that's probably the camp I sit in more so today than
realism.
Ever, so, yeah.
Well,
that's probably how people that's probably how Web3 fans consider a lot of my viewpoints in the past couple of months. But, hey,
there's only a few more of these left.
Sure,
and then we'll get to your next one. The loudest people for each chain just want their portfolio to go further into the green.
No, 100%.
Not remotely unpopular, or not remotely.
Pretty much every crypto influencer out there has done it purely to fill their own bags.
So
and
this is one of my. I'm just going to throw it in now because I've got this as today's unpopular opinion. I put YouTubers shilling shitcoins to make themselves money should be prosecuted. It's an immoral version of sponsored content without even the courtesy of putting sponsored on it. It was vile pump and dumps, shady activity, and under-the-table stuff. That's not remotely what Web3 is about, which prides itself on transparency.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before on the podcast. I've said it before in articles. They should be being prosecuted. I've written tweets about this before. Especially in the UK, where what's our agency called? I don't remember, but I know the USA has a similar agency. It was like, well, hey, if you're being paid or being otherwise
you need
compensated, you have to make that clear. And very, very few people in Web3 do.
The worst ones definitely didn't.
Even the media sites in general, and I'm not sure whether this does or doesn't include you. I don't mean this as any kind of personal slight, but there's a lot of websites that are like, in their like writer bios say, this person holds X token, but they don't say how much of that token, or they don't say like, they're not transparent with their wallet addresses, so it's a bit like.
I'll reply to that. I didn't enforce it on writers, and I don't myself include how much I have because it's constantly changing, and I cannot be bothered. So what we did was we had major holdings and minor holdings, and I can't remember. We put it somewhere at the threshold for what we consider to be a major holding and a minor holding.
I think if you're being clear with that, that's still way more than what most of the sites are doing.
You definitely need to, because the thing is, I was holding a lot of wax and talking about wax constantly, and it just seemed disingenuous, which is why we added this, is because we become a block producer for wax. I was holding wax, Dave was holding wax, and I was writing about wax, and I was like, it's not sponsored, but it kind of is in a way, because it is very in my own interest to see wax's reputation improve. Yeah, which is why we added it. But yes, we don't have the exact number.
That's kind of why I don't feel bad about wearing this hat on the podcast, or about there being like a cool cast plushie in the background. Because, I mean, on NFT Inside, if you click on my profile, it lists all of my wallet addresses. You can just go and see that I own 3 Lollipop NFTs.
I've never been
cool
secretive
with
that either.
No, and there's so many media. I think it's even worse with media sites than it is influencers. I don't know whether you agree, but there's at least many influencers who are not transparent with their wallets, or if they are listing them somewhere, they will just not mention. I mean, Big Boy Crypto was one of the main kind of culprits for this, where wasn't he doing promotions for FTX and then 6 months later flying to the Bahamas to be like, come talk to me, Sam.
He's done a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense.
I mean, he's not the only one. I don't mean to single him out, but I'm hard pressed to think of pretty much any influencer in the space that isn't transparent in a way that wouldn't get them prosecuted if it wasn't non-Web3 stuff and they were doing the same things.
So, I agree. Yeah. Price is not a good indicator of blockchain's value. Yeah, that's.
Well, value, no. Interest, probably more so.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, directly correlated. I then got something in quotes. I don't know if maybe you said it or I found it somewhere, but to be honest, I agree with all of them. Although it's brutal. It's just 4 points. It says majority of projects suck. Majority of NFTs will lose all their value. Majority of primary sales today are overpriced, and the majority of NFT games suck and have no future.
Yes to pretty much all of those. I think I have a slightly different opinion on the initial sale price. I think when a lot of these NFTs back in the day were being minted, your CryptoPunks were free, but Bored Apes, Cool Cats, all of those kinds of projects that were initially being minted for 0.08 ETH. I mean, yes, that was probably a couple of $100 at the time, but that's somewhat reasonable. I don't think the people behind those projects expected them to be worth like 25 ETH, which some of them did. And, but the projects that were seeing those kinds of prices come to reality and think, oh, you can sell my initial mint for like 1 ETH a piece. Like Porsche did that. And I'm sure Porsche looked at it as just, oh, we can make a load of money off this and cash in on our brand name, which, I mean, one, they kind of did, but two, they also turned the project around and made it something that was kind of actually worth that mint price as well, with like the exclusive Porsche experiences you could get and exclusive track days and things, which actually made it worth it.
Yeah, utility.
But, I mean, most projects didn't have utility that would be worth anything like that.
No.
It was just, hold this and you might get voting rights and you might get to decide the direction of the project. It's like, all right.
Yeah,
sure.
I think my main grievance, like the reason I would support that point is the games that were selling $750 alpha passes.
Ridiculous.
You want me to do what was previously a paid job, but pay $750 to do it. Like, just go away. That's disgusting. You're gross. Okay, so that's all the ones I had on that list.
Okay.
I still have a few on my current list. We are doing
all right on time.
On time, I guess.
Yeah.
What's your next one?
So this is kind of a two-pronged one. I have them down as two separate things on my list, but it kind of makes sense to combine them because they both kind of deal with perception and kind of the state of the community right now. So first things first, I think a lot of people in the community don't quite understand how much creators are struggling right now. And conversely, the community is just so incredibly toxic right now. And that's not chain specific, that is Web3 in general. So I've spoken to quite a few creators this week, actually, just about how they're getting on, how things are going compared to, this time last year, this time in 2021. And I know, I'm going to take one specific example. So there's a creator I know pretty well. I've known him for years. I've kind of slimmed that down a little bit by saying him, but I think that's still wider, so people won't know who it is. So
still a lot of people.
It's a blockchain game, a relatively popular one, that has a decent amount of players. It's not as popular as it used to be, but it's progressing along well. I think it's a game with a decent amount of promise. But they paid themselves last year something like 60% of what minimum wage would be.
Yeah.
And that was their revenue last year. And they're so passionate about it and they want to continue doing it, continue growing. But they're really on their last legs at this moment in time. And there's so many creators in the same boat right now. And conversely, going back to the point with the toxicity in the community, a lot of people, and I can't really blame the people in the community for feeling this way if they bought into the space because they wanted to make money. If you're someone who, came into the NFT space or Web3 space or whatever and dumped $5,000 on shitcoins and NFTs, and now your shitcoins and your NFTs are worth nothing, I would probably be as annoyed. I probably wouldn't vent that frustration on the people that I thought were going to 10x my money unless they were being very, buy this NFT and you'll 100x. Like, I don't think there were that many people actually saying that. But it's when times were good and everyone's bags were increasing and, you could make money or make crypto relatively easily, then there wasn't. I mean, there was criticism of things, but it was, oh, this thing kind of sucks, but hey, I'm making loads of money, so I don't really care. And now it seems like almost all of the upside has gone for the majority of the reason for why people are in the space, and all that's left is, I'm left with things that are now worth a penny on the dollar, and I see all of these problems and all of these things that could be better, and why aren't they being fixed, and why aren't the creators doing this, and why aren't people saying this, and like without firstly kind of realizing how difficult doing some of those things is, and secondly kind of realizing what kind of situation these creators are in.
Yeah. I don't think that's unpopular. Or maybe it's not unpopular with me.
To hardcore Web3 fans, I think it is pretty unpopular. I mean, even in the Ethereum space, when I look at the Cool Cats community, Dead Fellas community, etc., projects in which I hold some of their NFTs, there's still a lot of people like, why aren't you doing more to increase the floor price? Like, what are you doing? And it's just such a short-minded kind of view on things. Like, there's clearly the NFT space is in a bad place right now. Web3 is in a bad place right now. WorldCoin is the only thing that's really seen, and Ripple, of course, with the SEC ruling, but there's very few reasons to be positive about the space right now. And it just leads to a lot of like generalized negativity, and then people splintering off into smaller groups and saying, oh, fuck this guy and fuck that guy, and oh my god, these people are the worst, and these people are the worst, and talking about rug pulls from 2 years ago that at the end of the day it don't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. It's a strange environment, a strange place to be in. And I mean, I don't mean to rant about it, but I mean, literally even 2 weeks ago when I did one of my NFT calendars, and a creator reached out to me and was like, oh, well, I've had these drops going for like 2 months. And I was like, I tend not to list drops that have been around for a while, because I mean, they're not new and people tend to know that they're there. So, I'd rather promote something that's new and that's exciting and bring something new. And this particular creator had a massive hissy fit. Like, oh my God, we've been talking for 2 years. How dare you do this? How dare you don't support me during these difficult times? And I'm like, I would love to say that is a rare occurrence, but it's more the norm, which it doesn't fill me with hope, I suppose. Yeah. So I don't know.
I mean, I agree, because I have experience that's directly relevant to that. I mean, 2 years ago, or even probably a little under 2 years ago, we were hiring writers and streamers and graphic designers and artists and all sorts, because we had the money there to do it, and we wanted to. Two things: we wanted to grow, and we wanted to invest in the people that had the same kind of goals as us, that wanted to push the space forward. Like we had a great writer, a technical writer, who wanted to explain to people technology, and we were like, cool, just go around all the different ecosystems and write articles on that. And then we had a mobile gamer, Murta, who loved mobile games, and we were like, wicked. I don't play mobile games, so you write everything about mobile games that uses Web3.
Sure.
And now people will notice we have far fewer writers than we did, and we don't have the awesome Super Dope, who still streams, by the way. Go check him out; he's amazing. We don't have him anymore because we had to make these really horrible decisions where either we go the way that so many companies in the space go, where you take a massive risk and gamble that somehow you're going to make enough money to pay everyone, or you say, look, we're going to have to strip down to the basics and survive this crypto winter and just try and make it to the next bull run if a bull run happens. Or how I see it, I don't aim for the bull run. I aim for let's keep growing, even if we grow into other spaces. Like for me, the reason I started Token Gamer was blockchain technology in games was interesting to me. But really what's interesting to me is technology in games.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why we've expanded to AI. It's not because we want to jump on the hype train, although obviously views are valuable to us.
Absolutely.
I can't pretend they're not, but AI in games is fascinating to me. And we've talked about it loads with like NPCs and stuff. I find it very interesting, but it's horrible. It's a hard space. Like the amount of money I've taken out of Token Gamer in the last year, I reckon I've probably made less than minimum wage, or almost definitely, in terms of how much money I've taken out of the company.
Yeah.
Just because I want the company to succeed. So it's a very difficult time for creators, and I think very few are making enough money to continue, let alone making good money. So yeah, I guess I agree. People should cut creators a little bit of slack. I mean, we're creators, so we would say that. But anyone in the space, really, cut them a bit of slack, because it's very strange having such spiky interest and income when you're doing something, because what are you meant to do? If you're doing well, you're meant to try and, grow and reinvest stuff. And if you're doing poorly, you're meant to try and grow but not reinvest, not invest. You need to invest time rather than money. It's very hard to plan when crypto goes from 0 to 100 to 0 to 100 to 0. It's hard to predict how long each one of these periods lasts and what you should be doing with it. And so cut people slack, I guess.
No, it's very easy as like an onlooker or just a member of the community to look at things from the outside and be like, what the hell's going on? Like, why hasn't this been done? Why isn't this been done? But I mean, at the end of the day, we're businesses that have to make money, that have to survive. And if you have to prioritize things that generate revenue, then that's what you have to do.
Yes.
So, something you said there kind of just made me think of something that always kind of annoyed me back in the day, but it just kind of popped back in my mind. So this whole, this project's just in their initial mint, they've sold 10,000 NFTs at 0.2 ETH each or whatever, and then they withdraw a lot of that money into like a bank account, and all of a sudden people are annoyed at them. Like, what do you think people are using Web3 and NFTs for? They're using it because they can't go to like Kickstarter or whatever the hell they go to. Like, how do you think they're paying people? How do you think these projects, like, they have to withdraw the money to carry on doing things? Like, they can't.
Yes.
I never really understood that, getting mad at projects for, like, I guess, like, if they withdrew all of the money immediately and then disappeared into the sunset, I mean, they've rug pulled and you'll be burned by that. But also there's plenty of legitimate reasons why a project would withdraw from their treasury that I don't get why people got so up in arms about.
So I think there's two sides to it, isn't there? There's like, if you look at anyone that goes on Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, they'll say, how much have you been paying yourself? Because on the one side, if you really believe in something, you will invest as much into it as possible, which in terms of running a business means you're drawing out as little as possible, because you want to put it all back into the business because you believe in it. But then the other side of it is there's so much chaos and uncontrollable stuff that if you don't draw down money, you may end up with nothing. And I don't think it's personally, so I'm agreeing with you, I don't think it's fair to say, well, if you believed in it, you wouldn't take anything out because you know how big it can get and then you'll have all the money you want. Life just doesn't work like that. And people have, like, I've got a mortgage, a kid, a house, like car payments and credit cards and food and expenses. Like, I can't just say, well, no, I believe in this. So I'm going to ring up Barclays and say, look, I know you want my mortgage payment, but have you seen how good my NFT is? Like, it's sick. You'll love it.
It goes back to that kind of number one rule with any type of investing. If you invest 1K in anything and your money goes up, then, cash out that 1K, and then anything above that is profit.
Yeah. But people need a wage on top of... we're saying the same thing. You can't be surprised if people take money out of a success. That's not what they're doing it for. I only have a few more. There's one I'm just not getting into because I think it's an entire episode on its own. So we're not going to do that. So I'm going to say one which sounds like... I've got two left. I'm going to say one which sounds like you said it, but I've taken it from you. And the other one, which I wonder if you'll think this is unpopular or not. The industry improves more in a bear market than in a bull market.
I honestly don't think there's much difference. Like, I don't think... So the projects that made all their money in the bull market were so young and were so fresh and didn't really have a plan of what they're doing, that a lot of them just kind of sat on their laurels for a while or went in directions that are very different to what they're doing today. Like, Cool Cats is a big example of this. I've had like 3 CEOs that have gone in vastly different directions. And until they brought on their newest CEO, who's, you know, ex-Disney, until they brought him on, they didn't have like a defined direction. And now it's like, okay, this is what we're going to become. These are the directions we're going. This is what we want to become in the future. And it's, you know, you can now say, oh, Cool Cats is, you know, it's an entertainment and lifestyle brand. You know, they've got some video games on the way. They're doing their Macy's parade soon. They've got, you know, they're vastly transformed from what it was 2 years ago. And I think a lot of NFT projects are in the same kind of space. I think if you were a blockchain game and you knew what you were doing from the start, again, I don't think much has changed. As long as you can continue paying your staff to do the development you were going to do in the first place, I don't really think much has changed. I think some games have, or some projects rather, have been like, oh, we're a bit low on funds right now. Let's do a tier 2 mint. Like, I'm not saying Cool Cats did this, but Cool Cats and Cool Pets, and, you know, Bored Ape Yacht Club, then Mutant Ape Yacht Club, but then Mutant Ape Kennel Club. And I think some projects have definitely done extra mints just because they need revenue and they need money, which, I mean, fine. But I don't think the actual rate and development or what projects are doing has really changed all that much.
I'll put forward my case.
Sure.
My case is pretty simple. It's that when there's a bull market, people rush stuff to market. They rush out subpar quality stuff. Because they need it out now, right?
Yeah.
They need to make money now, and they know this is their opportunity, and the opportunity won't go around forever. No. Whereas in a bear market, you have much more time and space to do stuff without like this deadline hanging over you. So that's why I think I chose the words carefully. That's why I put improves more, because I think the quality goes up just where people don't have this sort of pendulum swinging above them.
I think that's more a symptom of time than it is market. At least my opinion, anyway.
What do you mean?
So, I mean, as I said, people back then didn't really know what they were doing. Nowadays, kind of regardless of what the market's doing, people have a firmer grip on what they are and what they want to become and what direction they're going in. So I think they're naturally more confident of what they're doing. Whereas in the past, it was just like, let's make money and then we'll figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, well, that's definitely true. I guess it depends on the project. If the project had a vision to start with, then I think they're probably doing better in the bear market in terms of quality.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point that I was going to say that I think I've just stolen from you is, and I think this would be unpopular. The industry is currently stuck, like the Web3 as a whole is stuck. And it can't really push past this sticking point until we see regulation. Now you see why it's your point.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
I think that really is the barrier. I mean, if you look at GameStop, they've now said explicitly the reason they've stepped back from Web3 is the lack of regulation.
Yeah, which you can't blame them for.
Not
I
really.
mean, there are going to be some Web3 degens like, how dare they do that? How dare they don't believe in Web3? But I mean, if you were in their shoes and you had... Yeah, I mean, regardless of, I'm going to say something quite unpopular here, but I mean, if you have any common sense whatsoever, you wouldn't be going all in on Web3. Like, you wouldn't be doing an Elon Musk and like, shit, we've got this Twitter brand that's like one of the world's most recognizable brands that's replaced with a fucking X and rebrand everything. Like, he doesn't care.
Yeah,
like,
he's got enough.
I think that's a very different. That's a very different scenario, in fairness. But I mean, you know what I mean. Like, there's risk, and that is. He doesn't care, but I think if there was a competent CEO in control of that company,
I mean, risk just isn't relevant to him, and in a way, that's kind of why he's successful. He would take kind of absurd risks.
That's why he has this kind of cult personality about it. But doesn't mean that doesn't mean every decision he makes is a good decision or the right one.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of people that do think that way. It's like, I can't do nothing wrong. Like, you're all going to be regretting it in 6 months' time when X is like the biggest app in the world. We're like, no.
You get those fanboys everywhere, don't you?
Yeah, but I think there's just certain personalities and certain people can do that. But yeah, it's a tricky situation we're in right now, and don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I think the impasse is regulation. As much as people, they're like, we don't want regulation from the bodies that we're moving away from, particularly in the financial sense.
Of course you do.
We don't have a choice. We need to protect the vulnerable, and the major companies aren't a lot of major companies are tentative because they know that regulation could change everything for them. If they made a big play in Web3 and then regulation comes in, it could change everything. They could lose a load of money. So,
I mean, even companies like Epic that are kind of more forthcoming with Web3 than others, I'm sure they have plenty of meetings, and Tim Sweeney probably says a lot of things privately that's like, yeah, we want to be seen as being very Web3 friendly, but we need to keep this kind of thing at an arm's distance.
They're playing it quite well.
I mean, I've said
Very
before
careful.
that if they wanted to put Web3 in Fortnite, they could have done it 3 years ago, but they didn't because it's so risky. And when they've got such a cash cow on their hands, like they have with Fortnite, why take the risk?
Yeah.
So
and regulation would solve that. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anything left?
I don't think I'll have anything major. It'd be interesting to know if you're listening to this. Let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
What your unpopular opinions are about the space. I mean, if you are a creator or a collector or an investor, whatever the hell you would call yourself, let us know what your thoughts are on what we've said in this episode, and plus what your thoughts are on.
It's always
Web3
funny
in general.
If you look at unpopular threads on Reddit, like unpopular opinions. It's funny because you have to upvote the things you hate because they're doing the best job of giving you an unpopular opinion. If you hate it, but it has to have some sort of logic to it. You can't just,
Yeah. I think it's very easy to rag on Web3 at the moment, and there's this natural pushback from people that are Web3 believers. And again, that's not to say that I personally don't believe in the technology or the games or the projects, but
we wouldn't be here if we didn't.
No, but the tide is coming in, so to speak. And it looks like there's a massive tsunami wave on the way, and it's about to hit shore, and it's difficult to. It's like we're all stood on the. Well, I'd say it's more like we're all kind of stood on the sand, staring at this wave, thinking, well, there's not much good I can say about the situation I'm in right now. I can run away as fast as I like, but the wave's still going to hit us at some point. So yeah, what a positive way around this.
That's a real pick me up for the exit.
Well, hey,
that's
anything else? Or?
No, I think that's me. That's me done.
Cool.
I'm suitably miserable.
Episode 74. 74, 74.
74.
That's 2 podcasts in a row I've done that. 74 of the Mint One podcast is in the books. Rob, where can we find you?
TokenGamer.io for all the latest blockchain gaming, AI, and technology-based stuff to do with gaming. And then Twitter at TokenGamer News, LinkedIn, TokenGamer, type TokenGamer. We are ranking number 1 on Google for the term TokenGamer. So just type TokenGamer and you'll find us, right? Which, that sounds like you're TokenGamer.io. Of course you'll rank. You should rank. But it was harder than you think. Because people were typing. Do you know why? People were typing gamer token, which is a completely different search query, but with the same words. And it made ranking very, very difficult. So anyway, type TokenGamer in somewhere, you'll find us. Jump in our Discord, tweet us, whatever you want to do. John?
Awesome. The trials and tribulations of SEO.
Gross.
Okay, for me personally, it's at Hydropowered, HIDROPWRD on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. You know the drill by now. Twitter's the best one. That's where you'll find my updates on what I'm doing right now and what I'm going to be doing soon, and all the other bits and pieces I'm working on. So that's me.
Okay.
So there we go. Episode 74 is in the books. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know your thoughts on this episode and what your unpopular opinions are on Web3. Who you'd like us to speak to next, all that good stuff. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, 5-star podcast review would be fantastic. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Mint1Pod. Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. We hope you tune in again next week.